Alright, guys. Thought I'd show exactly how I make these poor man's reloads. That's what people tend to call it. Some people were doing this back years ago as we've had some ammo shortages and different things. It's become popular. Right now, the reloading costs are up. Like if you don't already have a established supply, of powder primers and already have your presses, it can be quite expensive to get started. But it also depends on what you're trying to load. If you're trying to load something that you can't buy, this is specifically shot shells. But if you're trying to load buckshot or a larger shot size than what the manufacturers make, you can totally do that. It's perfectly safe to do. Coming from a reloading background, I used to do a lot of reloading for trap and skeet, with some buckshot and slug loading mixed in. I've sold the presses off and stuff over the years as prices fluctuated. At one time, the powder got really expensive. People were hoarding it. And I sold a bunch of 8-pound kegs that I had for double what I paid type thing. And the presses. It's happened a couple times since I started reloading. The prices have shot way up. And I've sold my stuff off and gotten back into it. For what I'm trying to do with this buckshot, basically I'm swapping the birdshot out of factory loads. So you want to pick, these are Winchester game loads. They're 7/8 ounce. So you want to pay attention to that. And then you want to look for something that has a good one-piece shot cup in there if you're going to be doing buckshot, especially in 20 gauge. Just having that one-piece shot cup and buffer. We're going to be using the Ballistics Products 47 mix. You can order, the buffer's cheap, the buckshot pellets are relatively cheap, and none of this stuff requires hazmat fees to have shipped to you, so you're avoiding that, by buying the factory ammo, which already has the powder and primer in there and the hulls as well. So you want to find, obviously a good economic. These are $9.97 a box right now, fairly inexpensive. But you want to find something that has a crimp style that isn't hard to open. So like some of the Remingtons, you can tell they are pressing it and then using some type, like a roll crimping finish type die that actually twists the plastic and kind of melts it. So you want to stay away from shells like that. They're going to be too hard to open. You're going to do too much damage. But shells like this, or even the Federals, they're just lightly pressed, for very economical crimp. They're actually easier to load, the cheaper shells. So take an awl pick, just a straight awl, and you're just going to try to get under one of the crimp pedals. So basically you want to find the one that's the easiest, most raised up, and you just want to just come in and just get under it just enough, just like that, and just kind of pry up on that first one. So you don't want to do too much prying, but get 2 of them, and then once you get that crimp loose, you're just going to lift up right on the corners of the stars. So you see how just working that all, I'll show you here in a second, but you're just working that awl pick around, and and just pushing back on the crimp. So once you get that crimp lifted, you want to take it and just start opening it like you're pushing up instead of prying, because that you don't want to pry too much. But yeah, that's all you got to do. Once you get it open, doesn't take too long to do. So these have basically a AA20, same as factory Winchester AA20 clay buster that you would load with, except for it's green. And you can see that illustration on the box. You can see that it's using a one-piece AA20 wad if you know anything about reloading. So we'll do the buckshot. So you want to have a scale ideally. This is relatively safe. But if you measure out the pellets, you're gonna have basically 12 pellets of number 2 buck. You're gonna be just shy of like right around 3/4 of an ounce, and you with the 2.5 cc of buffer, you're gonna be still just under 7/8. So nothing. You're not gonna have anything to worry about. It's completely safe to do. If you start messing with other shots, like you're putting like TSS in there, or you're taking steel shot loads, putting lead in there, that's, you're going to have some problems. But stick, lead shot loads, lead shot game loads, 7/8 of an ounce or 1 ounce, whatever, and just match that payload. But basically, you're just going to stack the buckshot in there in 2. So number 2 buck is going to be between 26 to 27 caliber, depending on manufacturer, like 2.68. But number 2 buck stacks in a 20 gauge with the shot cup pedals perfect in there. So you just get that first couple nice and flat. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and just use something just to kind of just tap it in, just to make sure it's completely seated in there. But then you're going to take your buffer, 1 scoop, 1 2.5 cc scoop is good. Little funnel, you guys can see that. Just start tapping it in there. I usually just tap it in, tap on the funnel until it's down into the hull itself, and just take the funnel out. And kind of just tap around the outside of the shell. You want that buffer down in there between the pellets, and you're just going to keep tapping that in there until just till you see the top of the buckshot pellets sticking out of the buffer. You don't have to. I mean, you just want to make sure it's nice and level with the top of the shell. Like if you got a little more in there, the hulls are going to vary slightly anyways on capacity, just because the lengths vary, especially on cheaper factory loads. But basically, you just want to work that crimp back close. It's not going to be hard to do because it still has the memory from being crimped. It's not like a once fired hull. But you just start working that, and then you can, if you have a reloading press and you don't have any powder left, primers, you can do this and just crimp it on a press. Or you can buy like a Lee Loader hand tool kit and just use the die. Same thing if you don't want to buy the powders. Primers can be hard to get, they're expensive. I actually made this die out of a spring retainer from a Stevens 320. I had put an extension on it, and I kept the retainer piece that holds the spring, drilled it out, put a dowel in the middle, and then shave this out a little bit so that it has a taper to it. So basically, I'll go ahead and push this on here and show you, but I push it up, the shell in there, and it just goes in a little ways, and then just kind of spin it. But it's tapered in there, so it's going to give that end of that shell a little radius, so that stays on the end. And then the dowel is actually going to be the part that's pushing the crimp closed. So I went Walmart, about $3-4, got this 4-inch C-clamp, and basically I just back this off, and you can see the clamp head fits perfectly inside the plastic there. So it's not pushing down on the plastic, it's pushing down on that wooden dowel. So the clamp never actually contacts the plastic die. So that's basically what you got there, and it's long enough you can do a 3-inch shell as well with the 4-inch. But basically you just center that up. I just start turning. I do it all by feel, just kind of check and make sure it's centered. Alright, when it starts to get hard, then just back it off. And that's usually about right, you can see. Perfect crimp on there, just like factory. It's, like I said, there's still memory in it, so it's not as hard to get a good looking crimp. But if you do it on a reloader, an old reloader, like even if you got one that's missing parts, like it's missing the charge bar or whatever, you know, you could just use that just to do the crimping part. But I usually do that, check to see if I can, you know, fix the crimp if it's a little weird looking, then just give it a little more pressure. But it's just a feel thing, and you also want to look, like you can look up in the light and make sure you're not compressing that cushion section of the wad. So that's a good indication of how much pressure. But with this, if you get the stack right, you'll notice by the crimp how deep it sits. But that's it, guys. And these are going to be great loads. They feel good. They got a nice power to them. They're not magnum loads, but you know, you're going to get similar velocities to what the birdshot loads are going to be. Very, very tight patterning, especially in the 20 gauge. Having that full shot cup and buffer, they pattern really nice. I was getting like 10 to 12 inch patterns at 25 yards with a cylinder choke. You know, I think these would be good usable loads out to 40 yards with a cylinder choke. So just wanted to show that, guys. Just make sure you know what's in your loads. You know, you don't want to be shooting birds in the air with buckshot. You know, if you're taking some of these shells as is for hunting, I use oil-based paint just to mark the tops. So I know red for buckshot, and then I have purple for number 2 lead. So just know your payloads, guys. Like you don't have to weigh everything. Just like kind of how people reload just with bushing charts and stuff. You know, you don't have to weigh it to know your weights close enough. Like you can, you know, a rough scale on buckshot weight per pellet. You know, if you're not trying to push it to max, 12 pellets. You know, type thing. You can use charts for your weights as well to get close enough. And it's going to be, if you're going to bigger pellets, your weight's going to be under the smaller shot sizes, just because of the density. You can't fit as many in there, as long as it's not tungsten, like I said, TSS, something more dense than lead, heavier than lead. But yeah, guys, works perfectly fine. I've done this many times in the past, just messing around with different shells. You know, I've done it with reloaded birdshot shells too, that I've loaded myself and then taken them apart. But yeah, guys, that's the poor man's reload. Like I said, about $5 in the press, homemade die, some buffer, 2.5 cc dipper, couple bucks, and a little funnel. $9.97 a box, guys. And the greatest thing is it's still cheaper than loading buckshot yourself. That startup cost, and cheaper than buying factory buckshot by a long ways. There, you're looking at $9-10 for 5 shells. And you can take the lead shot when you're done. And once you get a decent amount saved up, you can bag it up and sell the lead shot. So that's going to recover even more of your costs. But yeah, guys, just thought I'd show that. Anybody interested in doing that, it's really easy to do.